The auditorium lights dimmed as Michael Bennett shuffled onto the America's Got Talent stage, his weathered hands clutching an acoustic guitar that had seen better days. The 56-year-old man wore a flannel shirt with frayed cuffs and jeans that hung loose on his thin frame. His salt and pepper beard was neatly trimmed, the only sign that he had prepared for this moment with whatever dignity he could muster. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair with his arms crossed, already wearing his trademark expression of skepticism. Heidi Klum offered a warm smile. Howie Mandel sat forward with interest, while Sofia Vergara placed her hand over her heart as if she could already sense something special was about to unfold. Terry Crews, the host, approached Michael with his characteristic enthusiasm. "Welcome to America's Got Talent. Tell us about yourself, Michael." Michael's voice was soft but steady. "Well, I'm from a small town in West Virginia. I served in the Army for 12 years, did 2 tours in Afghanistan. When I came back, things got hard. Real hard. I've been living in my truck for the past 3 years, moving from town to town, doing odd jobs where I can find them." The audience fell silent. You could hear the collective intake of breath across the theater. "I'm sorry to hear that," Terry said gently. "What brings you here today?" Michael looked down at his guitar, his fingers running over a deep scratch on its body. "About 4 months ago, I met a dog. She was hiding behind a dumpster in Bakersfield, skinny as a rail, scared of everything. I started sharing my food with her, and eventually, she started following me. I named her Grace because she was exactly that. Grace in the middle of my mess." His voice cracked slightly, and he paused to compose himself. 3 weeks ago, Grace got sick. Real sick. I took her to a vet clinic that helps people like me. They did everything they could, but she had cancer. It was everywhere. I held her when she passed, and I promised her I'd do something meaningful with my life. She never judged me, never saw me as homeless or broken. She just saw me. Sofia Vergara was already reaching for tissues. Several audience members wiped their eyes. "This song is called Waiting at the Gate," Michael continued. "I wrote it the night she died, sitting in my truck under a streetlight. It's about how I imagine she's waiting for me, just like she used to wait by my truck every morning, tail wagging, ready to start another day together." Simon's expression had softened, though he remained silent. "Whenever you're ready," he said quietly. Michael closed his eyes and began to play. The guitar's tone was imperfect, slightly out of tune, but somehow that made it more honest. Then he started to sing, and the entire atmosphere shifted. His voice was raw and untrained, cracking in places, but it carried an authenticity that no vocal coach could manufacture. He sang about waking up without her warm body pressed against his side. About missing the way she would nudge his hand with her nose when he forgot to eat. About the unconditional love she gave when the rest of the world had turned away. The chorus spoke of her waiting at heaven's gate, tail wagging, eyes bright, saving him a spot beside her for when his own journey ended. He sang about wanting to be the man she thought he was, the hero she saw through those trusting brown eyes. By the second verse, there wasn't a dry eye on the judges' panel. Heidi Klum was openly sobbing. Howie Mandel had removed his glasses to wipe his face. Sofia Vergara clutched her tissue box. Even Simon Cowell's eyes were glassy, his jaw tight with emotion. The audience was devastated. Grown men buried their faces in their hands. Women held each other. The cameramen struggled to keep their shots steady. Michael sang about the last morning, about carrying her into the vet's office, about how she licked his tears away even as her own body was failing. He sang about the moment her breathing stopped, about the silence that followed, about the weight of her collar in his pocket. Then came the bridge, and this is where Michael delivered the twist that shattered everyone completely. His voice dropped to almost a whisper as he revealed that Grace wasn't the first loss he'd endured. Years ago, before the war, before the homelessness, he'd had a daughter named Emily. She had died at age 7 from leukemia. In his grief and survivor's guilt after losing her, he had pushed away his wife, lost his sense of purpose, and eventually spiraled into the life he now led. He sang about how Grace had the same eyes as Emily. The same gentle spirit. How loving that dog had been the first time his heart had opened since he'd buried his little girl. Grace hadn't replaced Emily, but she had reminded him that he could still love, still feel, still have something to live for. The final chorus swelled as Michael's voice grew stronger. He sang about 2 souls waiting at the gate now, his daughter and his dog, both patient, both forgiving, both believing he would find his way back to being whole. He sang about carrying their love as he tried to rebuild, about letting their memory be his strength instead of his destruction. When the last note faded, the silence was absolute. 5 full seconds passed where nobody moved, nobody breathed. Then the audience erupted. Every single person rose to their feet in a standing ovation that lasted over 2 minutes. Terry Crews was wiping his eyes with both hands. Production crew members stood in the wings with tears streaming down their faces. In the control room, directors and producers were crying. Simon Cowell spoke first, his voice rough. "Michael, in 20 years of doing this show across multiple countries, I have never, and I mean never, been so moved by a performance. That wasn't just singing. That was pure, unfiltered human experience, and you shared it with us. You honored Grace. You honored Emily. And you showed incredible courage." Heidi could barely speak through her tears. "You are not broken. You are beautiful. Your story, your heart, everything about this was beautiful." Howie leaned forward. "Michael, I think everyone in this room feels privileged to have witnessed this. Thank you for trusting us with something so personal." Sofia stood up, still crying. "I have a dog at home. I cannot imagine. You have made me want to go home and hold her right now. Your love is so big, so pure. Emily and Grace, they would be so proud of you." Then came the voting. 4 immediate yeses, but Simon stood up and did something unprecedented. "I want to do something we've never done before. I'm going to use my golden buzzer for you, Michael. Not because you're the best technical singer, but because this is what this show is supposed to be about. Real people, real stories, real heart." Simon slammed the golden buzzer. Golden confetti rained down as the entire audience went wild again. Michael stood frozen in disbelief as Terry Crews ran onto the stage and embraced him. The judges came out from behind their table to hug him, something that rarely happened during auditions. Through his tears, Michael kept repeating, "This is for Grace. This is for Emily." Backstage footage later showed Michael calling the vet clinic that had helped Grace, donating the appearance fee to help other pet owners in need. He also reached out to veteran support organizations, wanting to share his story to help others struggling with PTSD and homelessness. The video of Michael's performance went viral immediately, garnering over 50 million views in 48 hours. People across America opened their hearts and their wallets. A GoFundMe campaign raised over $2 million for Michael. Veteran organizations offered him housing and support. A music producer reached out about recording his song professionally, with all proceeds going to animal shelters and veteran charities. But perhaps most meaningful was the response from everyday Americans. Thousands shared stories of their own losses, their own struggles, their own moments of grace in dark times. Michael's vulnerability had given others permission to be vulnerable too. 6 months later, Michael was still on his journey, but now he had a home, steady income from his music, and a new rescue dog named Hope. He'd reconnected with his ex-wife, not romantically, but to heal old wounds and honor Emily's memory together. He spent his time visiting veteran centers, sharing his story, and reminding others that it's never too late to find purpose again. America's Got Talent had seen many memorable acts, but Michael Bennett's, Waiting at the Gate, became more than a performance. It became a cultural moment that reminded millions that behind every struggling person is a story of loss, love, and the courageous attempt to keep going.